welcome to Jurassic Park 3 Minute 12. We're discussing the second Jurassic Park sequel, 1 minute at a time. I'm Brad.
I'm Dave.
And today we're going to be discussing minute 33 of Jurassic Park 3. David, ready to get into it?
Sure.
As we ended on minute 32 of Jurassic Park 3, the group had come across the parasaur, hanging from a large tree. Paul had found a life jacket, and Udesky had found a video camera hidden in the grass. As we open on minute 33, Udesky starts to pull his torch to bits and says, "I have an idea." At the 7-second mark, Grant and Billy are standing by the parachute, when the tiny voices of Eric can be heard from the video camera. At the 14-second mark, after Grant and Billy come over to stand behind Amanda and Paul, they all watch the tiny screen of the video camera, as we see Eric throwing a frisbee on a beach. As the video continues to be played, we can see Ben asking for the video camera, saying he wants to take it with him, and then shots of Vissla Sauna and the boat attack, before finally the two crashing through the canopy of a tree, and Eric landing on the ground, saying that he's okay. At the 52-second mark, Eric looks back up towards the camera and says the camera's still on, before reaching up and turning it off. And as the minute ends, with sign of their son alive, Paul says he's still alive. We're going to find him. Continuing straight on from minute 32 here, where Amanda's found the video camera battery dead, Udesky says that he has an idea and begins unscrewing his torch. Now, we don't get to see exactly what he's up to, but we can pretty much put together, and it's said in the script as well, that he's sort of using the batteries in the torch to power the video camera.
Which, honestly, I always thought he was transferring the battery to the camera when I was a kid, and now that I think back on it, I'm not sure how I thought he would have done that.
Well, it looks like a Maglite, so back in the 2000s it would have been run on the big D batteries, so there might be 4 D batteries in there. They're about 1.5 volts each.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, those batteries would not have fit in that camera.
Yeah. So, but even the voltage, you're looking at about 6 volts total. Those cameras are running about 9 volts, or I didn't check. I did do some research on this camera. I'll get to in a minute, but I didn't check the battery voltage, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. But even just trying to, because in the script too, it says he uses wires to connect the batteries, and we don't see any of that. We don't know where he'd get wires from. We didn't see him strip any wire out of the cockpit or anything.
Yeah. Which
you could have done. Being a mercenary or a booking agent, he might have thought to think ahead like that and grab some wiring or something, but we get a cut here of Alan and Billy sort of standing by the parachute looking at it, and then we hear the sound of Eric's voice coming from the tiny speakers of the camera, and they walk over to where Paul and Amanda and the Udesky are crouched down watching the video, and it shows sort of Ben and Eric throwing a frisbee on a beach, then a cut to a car park and Ben saying he wants to take the camera with them.
Mm-hmm. And I think that it's implied that they are vacationing in Costa Rica through this.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they're both kind of from Enid, Oklahoma, and there's no beaches in Oklahoma. First of all, and then when when Ben turns around and asks for the camera, you can see palm fronds behind them in the parking lot.
Yeah.
So they probably filmed, I mean, for the sake of the movie, they probably filmed it in like some parking lot on Kauai. But I think that it's meant to be Costa Rica.
I was looking very closely at those cars in the parking lot, trying to see if maybe it was the back lot or something. I suppose Amanda saying that this was filmed the morning they disappeared can pretty much say that they had to have been there.
Yeah, that would have to mean they were in Costa Rica at that time.
Yeah. It's sort of, I find one odd little thing here is the fact that it's just started playing from them throwing the frisbee on the beach, whether that's the start of the tape or we don't see him hit the rewind button, and they don't just turn the camera on and press play, obviously, because it'd be stopped where the film ended. But sort of a little bit of a chopping here, where it's on the beach, and it cuts to the car park where Ben gets the camera, and then it pretty much instantly cuts to the views already on the parasail above Sauna, and I just wonder if Enrique didn't want him filming on the boat. Don't get my face on camera.
I'd have to say he probably did not.
Yeah. which is different to the script or in the novel. One or two we'll get to in a minute. They filmed on the boat as well, but I definitely, if Enrique's run a bit of a shady operation here, and no cameras, no photography until you get in the air.
Now, one thing I did want to mention, I forgot to mention this earlier in the minute, is when Grant and before Grant and when Grant and Billy are standing there in front of the parasail before Udesky rushes over with the flashlight, you can see like there's an orange glow at the base of the tree, which I think is trying to imply that the sun is setting soon, which is weird because they're kind of in the middle of the day.
Yeah, well, we don't get nighttime on the island until we get to the river. a lot longer past this point. Maybe it was just something they filmed late.
May have been, yeah.
But I suppose it does show too the fact that the foliage and that isn't as dense here around this big tree, so the sun is allowed to get in, even as it's setting or getting lower in the sky. It's able to get in and make that orange glow.
Mm-hmm.
We also get a shot here on the camera of the boat being torn up and the confusion, and a little bit of extra dialogue from Ben that we didn't hear in the original, saying there's a big cliff while they're trying to get the rope free. But then we sort of another cut on camera to them coming down into the trees, and Ben frees Eric and he drops to the ground a few feet below him on the jungle floor, and he asks, "Are you alright, buddy?" And he says he's going to drop down himself, but we don't see that. We just see Eric looking back up and saying the camera's still on, and he reaches up and turns it off.
I wonder why we never see him. And first of all, I'm going to say that I don't... Did you look at the specs for this camera? Because I have no belief that this camera could zoom in onto the island like this. Like it does.
I did. The camera itself, it took a lot of editing, screen caps to try and get some things on. I did read one. There's one sort of blogger that calls out films on product placing and called out this film for product placing of this Panasonic video camera, but the fact that I had to try so hard just to get a clear image of it to get the numbers and that off it, I don't think it's as product placement as he thinks, but it's a Panasonic PV-DV 400, which is a palm quarter. It was part of the release of the early 2000s where the video cameras moved from internal memory to, or even the small tapes, to the small DV tapes, which could hold a lot more. As for stats itself, I didn't write all them down, but digital back then. I don't think they got to digital zoom. It still would have been all optic zoom. So yeah, there's no way they could have zoomed in that far.
Yeah, because you can see they zoom in right up on a river.
Yeah.
Seriously, there's no way they did that with that camera. But yeah, as we were discussing before, we see him turn around and mention the camera's still on, but we never see him get out of the tree. And it's fun. It's just weird because I know that some fans have suggested that you can possibly hear a raptor snarl during the camera feed, but I could never hear it. I don't think it's there.
Well, it does go into another one of the big mysteries of this film, and I suppose we can discuss it more when we get to the next minute. But what exactly happened there? Here we I'm guessing when they went through the trees, he's knocked it, or as branches hit it, and that's turned it back on, because we only get that last couple of seconds of him going through the trees, and then it's sort of cut again to him letting Eric down. So
well, there's also a bit that we don't see because the camera cuts away to showing them looking at the view, and we don't actually see the feed itself.
Well, it's sort of in the film here, it sort of looks more like than it just got Eric turned the camera off and that's the end. Where in the actual script it says the battery goes and the camera just goes black. So there could have been more there. That what happened could have been recorded, but again, like now, here we are in our second minute of having this, or we've nearly gone for a full minute of just stuff on this camera, which, as we mentioned in the script or in the novel last minute, it doesn't really add much to the film. We just see that Eric survives he gets to the ground alive, which gives Paul and Amanda hope that he is still alive. and didn't sort of die when they hit the ground. But yeah, and then the other nitpick, of course, is the fact that this camera can still operate after 8 weeks. One big thing with these films, I think we've mentioned before, every film there's some sort of storm. The film itself could take between 1 to 2 days on the island. There's always a storm, so that means it rains a lot down there, and this camera would have been mouldy and destroyed.
Well, what is it? Why am I drawing a blank? The life vest that they find is kind of dry rotted away. When you see her grab it, you can see that it's the material around the foam on the inside is kind of it looks thin.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure if it's just because it's been on the boat and it's a crappy boat, or if it's actually because it's just been out in the elements for 2 months. Same with the parasail, though. The parasail looks shiny and new when we saw it on the boat, and here is kind of covered in dirt and leaves and stuff already.
Yeah, I suppose because of the fact that Ben's hanging from it, it wouldn't have been on the ground then just got blown back up into the tree. It looks like it's been on the ground for a while then hung up again, but yeah, one stat I definitely checked out when I found this camera online was its waterproof factor, and it's not waterproof at all.
Yeah, so that would have been destroyed then.
Yeah. But again, it's here to exposit some dialogue, and it's good to see that you can still buy this camera on eBay and that for just under the $100 mark for the most part, so I'm going to be purchasing one and getting it trashed up a little bit to put in my display as a little bit of a prop. But briefly in the script and novel comparisons, we get a little bit more about how Udesky powers up the camcorder, as I said before, using the batteries from the torch and running wires to the camcorder. Udesky also says he doesn't know how long it'll work for, but swings out the tiny little screen and hits play, so again he goes straight for play and not rewind. As the tape plays, Amanda says, I filmed this the morning they left, and not the morning they disappeared like she says in the film. And we actually get some footage here on the camera as well of the boat approaching the island, and it's described as pretty much getting what we've seen in the start of the film replayed here on the little camera screen, but through Ben's perspective, of course, because he's the one holding it. And obviously that's why they cut it all down, because again we don't want to re-go through the whole start of the film here on the camera. But we also, with them, when we see them falling through the trees, it's a little bit more scary, or scarier fall through the canopy of trees. A lot more flashes and sort of branches hitting the camera, and the scared faces of Eric and Ben as the camera's sort of whipping around and they fall through the treetops. And when Ben's asking if Eric's okay, you can sort of hear a gurgling in his voice.